We're talking about two countries, two ancient civilizations, but really, we're diving into their modern story. It's a journey that kicks off with a declaration of brotherhood and spirals into one of the world's most critical rivalries. Yep, this is the story of India and China from 1950 right up to today.
So, back in the early 1950s, you would have heard this slogan everywhere in India: Hindi Chini Bye Bye. It means Indians and Chinese are brothers. And you can just feel the optimism in that, right? Two brand new nations, neighbors, totally ready to write a new destiny for Asia, together. It was a huge promise of a shared future.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How on earth did that dream of brotherhood just fall apart so completely? What turned these two neighbors into such fierce competitors? Well, the answer is a story of trust, betrayal, and, of course, ambition. All right, to really get this conflict, we've got to rewind. Let's go all the way back to the very beginning, to a time when it looked like their goals were perfectly aligned, a time when a new dawn was breaking over Asia.
Okay, check out this timeline. You've got India gaining independence in 1947. Just 2 years later, a new government is established in China under Mao Zedong. And here's the kicker. India, as a gesture of solidarity, becomes one of the very first non-communist nations to recognize this new government. I mean, the foundation for a rock-solid friendship seemed to be there, right?
So here's the really crucial part. Both nations had just shaken off foreign influence, and they shared this incredibly powerful vision. They really believed that together they could lead the continent and bring Asia back to its former glory. They didn't see each other as rivals at all, but as partners on this historic mission. But that dream of partnership, it was about to face a truly brutal test. The very geography that connected them would ironically become the line that would tear them apart, leading to a conflict that would leave a permanent scar. And this right here gets to the heart of the problem. Border disputes started to heat up. India held its claim over what's now Arunachal Pradesh in the east, while China was dead set on controlling Aksai Chin in the west, a super strategic plateau connecting Tibet and Xinjiang. You could say these competing claims were the seeds of the storm that was coming. And then, in October of 1962, that storm hit. China launched a sudden, massive attack. The Indian army, well, they were poorly equipped for high-altitude fighting and were taken completely by surprise. They were just overwhelmed. In about a month, it was over. China had secured its control over Aksai Chin. For India, this was a devastating blow, not just militarily, but psychologically. And just like that, the dream of Hindi Chini Bye Bye was shattered. The feeling of betrayal was immense. Prime Minister Nehru's whole vision of Asian solidarity, it was just in ruins. That phrase, which once symbolized so much hope, now became this painful reminder of a friendship that was lost to war. Okay, so after the war, the two nations basically turned their backs on each other. They went on totally separate journeys. But decades later, they'd find themselves on a collision course once again. This time, though, it wasn't on a frozen battlefield, but in the global economic arena. Yeah, for years after the war, things were icy. Geopolitics shifted completely. China got closer to Pakistan, while India strengthened its ties with the Soviet Union. It wasn't until 1976 that diplomatic ties were even fully restored. And a real thaw? That didn't really start until Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's landmark visit in 1988, which kind of signaled, okay, maybe it's time to finally move past this. Now, what's really fascinating is how they chased economic power in completely different ways. You had China, which opened up its economy but kept its communist framework, transforming itself into the world's factory through massive state-led investment. And then you have India. After its big 1991 reforms, it leaned into its democratic strengths, growing its IT and service sectors like crazy. So one built its future with concrete and steel, the other built it with code and intellect. All right, let's fast forward to the 21st century and see how this all evolves into the modern rivalry we see today. Those old border tensions, they never really went away. But now they're just one front in a much broader, way more complex competition. And in recent years, the border has flared up big time. The 2017 Doklam standoff had troops face-to-face for weeks. But the 2020 clash in the Galwan Valley, that was different. It was the first deadly confrontation in 45 years. There were casualties on both sides, and it pushed relations to their lowest point in decades, a real shock to the system. So India's response to Galwan was swift and honestly pretty unprecedented. It wasn't just a military response, it was digital. The government banned over 200 Chinese apps, including the mega popular TikTok. This was a clear message. The economic and tech worlds were now officially part of the battlefield. So you can really see the escalation here, right? The conflict mushroomed from the physical border to a digital war, and now it's a full-on global race for influence. China's pushing its huge infrastructure project, the Belt and Road Initiative, to expand its reach all over the world. And in response, India is doubling down on alliances like the Quad, that strategic partnership with the US, Japan, and Australia. And this rivalry has become a flat-out tech race. China is a beast when it comes to hardware and next-gen tech like 5G and AI, but India is firing back with its own strengths. A booming startup scene, incredible space achievements like the Chandrayaan-3 moon landing, and game-changing digital payment systems like UPI. It's really the ultimate showdown, manufacturing muscle versus pure mind power. So, what does all of this mean for the future? As both of these nations stand as global giants, the next chapter of their story is going to shape not just Asia, but the entire world. And check this out, because this is a critical factor that could decide everything. Demographics. India is now the world's most populous country. And get this, it has the largest youth population on the planet. China, on the other hand, is facing an aging, shrinking population. This youth energy could honestly be India's single greatest advantage in the long run. This really sums it all up perfectly, doesn't it? China's strength is its manufacturing and military muscle, its hard power, all driven by state-led discipline. India's strength is its democracy and its people, its youth energy, which fuels a more unpredictable but incredibly creative and innovative spirit. We're talking two vastly different philosophies, two totally different sources of power. And you know, this kind of reframes the whole thing. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question all along. Maybe it's not about who wins in some single decisive victory. Maybe it's about resilience. It's about which system, which model, is more sustainable, more adaptable for the crazy challenges of the next century. Which brings us to the final and most critical question. As we look ahead, who is really in a better position to lead? Who is going to define the next era for Asia and for the world? Is it going to be China's model of centralized power and technological dominance? Or will it be India's model, built on democratic principles and the raw creative energy of its people? These are the two competing visions on offer to the world.
But in the end, maybe the ultimate victory isn't about which nation dominates, but which vision inspires. In a world that feels more fractured than ever, will the future belong to the nation that commands through sheer strength, or the one that leads by bringing people together? The answer to that question will define not just the future of Asia, but the future for all of us.